Have you ever walked into a room and felt like the air didn't even notice you were there? Like you could scream and the world would just keep scrolling. You try so hard to be good, to be kind, to show up for everyone, and still you are treated like background noise. They remember what you do for them, but not your name. They call you when they need you, but they never stop to wonder who you are when you're the one bleeding inside. And here's the part nobody tells you. The more available you are, the more invisible you become. You can spend your whole life giving and still be forgotten because in this world, people don't chase what's always in their hands. They chase what feels rare, what feels untouchable. If that hits a nerve, stay with me, because in the next few minutes I'm going to tell you exactly why you keep getting overlooked and how to become someone they cannot ignore and cannot replace. Most people think the reason they're overlooked is because they are not loud enough, not beautiful enough, not talented enough, not rich enough. That's the easy excuse, but the truth cuts deeper. You are overlooked because you have built your entire life on other people's definitions of who you should be. You've worn masks for so long you have forgotten what your own face looks like underneath. You wake up every day and live a script that someone else handed you when you were a child. Be nice, be safe, don't make people uncomfortable, make sure they like you. And so you become a copy of a copy, predictable, easy to reach, easy to replace. Nobody told you that being good at everything and saying yes to everyone slowly turns you invisible. The hidden truth is that most people never take the time to figure out who they are beneath all of that noise. They never meet the part of themselves that makes them unforgettable. They keep showing up with borrowed words, borrowed clothes, borrowed dreams, wondering why no one ever stops to look twice. When you are unsure of who you are, you vibrate at the level of every other lost person. You fit so neatly into the background that the world's eyes slide right past you. People can feel it even if they don't have the words for it. There's no gravity in a hollow presence. And that is why no matter how hard you work, no matter how much effort you pour into proving yourself, something always feels off. It is not because you are not enough. It is because you have not yet rooted yourself in the thing that makes you rare. Think of it like this. A diamond lying in the dirt, uncut, coated in soil, looks like any other stone. People step over it. They don't see its value. It has to be pulled out, cut, polished. That is what you have been missing. You are still covered in the layers of who you were told to be, so nobody sees you. You keep trying to fix it on the surface. You change your style, your job, your city, your circle. You read all the books and learn all the hacks. But if the energy underneath is still built on fear of being left out, nothing changes. It's like repainting a cracked wall while the foundation underneath rots away. And here is the cruelest part. The more you try to compensate by over-delivering, by being always available, always pleasing, the less you are seen. You've been taught that presence is about effort, but true presence is about essence. People confuse doing with being. You think if you work harder, say yes faster, give more, they will finally recognize you. But attention does not work like that. Respect does not work like that. It's not that the world is cruel. It's that the world is wired to pay attention to what stands out. And you cannot stand out by becoming a safer, quieter version of everybody else. Underneath all the striving is something harder to admit: fear. Fear that if you said no, they would leave. Fear that if you stopped performing, there would be nothing worth loving. Fear that if you withdrew, nobody would come looking. That fear is what keeps you playing small. You stay accessible because you think love is earned through sacrifice. You stay busy because silence feels like proof that you don't matter. And yet, deep down, you can feel it. Every time you overgive, over-explain, overperform, a piece of you disappears. This is why people don't see you. They cannot see what is not there. They can sense when someone has hollowed themselves out just to fit in. What makes someone magnetic isn't perfection. It isn't being liked by everyone. It is the quiet force of someone who has met themselves and decided that their truth is worth protecting. The hidden truth, the one almost no one ever tells you, is that people who are seen as rare are not born that way. They become that way when they stop living by borrowed scripts and start living by their own. That shift, from external approval to internal alignment, is the line between a life of invisibility and a life that commands presence. And this is why you've been stuck. It isn't luck, it isn't fate, it isn't something you don't have. It is that you have been waiting for the world to give you permission to be valuable when that permission has been in your own hands the whole time. You don't need to become someone else to be chosen. You need to strip away everything that is not really you. That is the root you have been missing, and until you find it, everything else will feel like pushing against an invisible wall. If nothing changes, if you hear these words and then go right back to the same way you have been living, the cost is not just that people will keep ignoring you. The cost is that you will start ignoring yourself. Every day you wake up and move through the world unseen, a little part of you learns to accept it as normal. You start shrinking without realizing you're shrinking. You talk softer. You apologize more. You stop asking for what you really want. And one day you wake up and you can't even remember what lit you up as a kid, because all your energy has been spent on keeping other people comfortable. You become a ghost of yourself walking through a life that no longer belongs to you. That is the real danger. It's not just that they don't see you. It's that eventually you stop seeing you. Years go by like that, 10 years, 15. And you look back and you wonder why no one ever respected you, why no one ever loved you the way you gave love. You tell yourself stories like maybe I was never good enough, maybe that's just life, maybe this is how it was meant to be. Those are the lies you will believe if you do nothing. The truth is, this cycle gets heavier as time passes. The more you say yes to everything, the more people expect it. The more you let yourself be used as a convenience, the harder it becomes to change, because you've trained everyone around you to see you as ordinary. And if you don't break that pattern, that training becomes permanent. I've seen it happen. People who give 30 years of their life to making sure everybody else is okay, hoping that one day it will be their turn, only to wake up and realize no one is coming to save them. No one even noticed their sacrifice. They vanish quietly from their own story, still waiting for a recognition that never comes. And there's another cost, one you feel in your body long before it hits your mind. That heavy feeling in your chest, that tiredness you can't explain, that quiet anger that sneaks out in the wrong moments. It is what happens when a soul knows it was made for more, but is trapped in a life too small. Even science has words for it. Psychologists call it learned helplessness, the slow erosion of self-worth when you convince yourself that no matter what you do, nothing will change. And it is deadly to a person's potential. If you continue to live this way, you will not just be replaceable. You will be erased. There will always be someone younger, hungrier, louder, willing to do for free what you've been doing just to be seen. And when they step in, the world will forget you in an instant because you never gave them a reason to hold you in their memory. Let that sink in for a moment. If you keep living the way you are living now, 10 years from today, nothing will be different. You will still be tired, still invisible, still wondering when it will be your turn. That thought should scare you. It should shake you enough to make you sit up and say no more, because you only get one life. One. And if you spend it living as an option, you will never know what it feels like to be chosen. The years will not give you back what they take. That is the cost of doing nothing. This is your wake-up call. You can keep waiting for the world to see you, or you can decide today that you will no longer live small, that you will no longer let yourself fade quietly into the background of your own life. You have a choice, and the clock is already ticking. There comes a moment when you realize that the life you've been living isn't broken because you're unlucky or untalented or not trying hard enough. It's broken because you've been building it on the wrong blueprint. The breakthrough is this: people cannot value you more than you value yourself. They cannot see what you refuse to own. If you want to stop being ignored and stop being replaced, you must change the way you show up in the world from the inside out. This is not about trying harder. It is about becoming different. It begins with a decision, and it is simpler than most people think. You stop asking to be chosen. You stop trying to earn worth through constant availability. You stop pouring your energy into being easy to reach, easy to please, easy to consume. And instead, you build depth. You build an inner life that no one can take away from you. The moment you start living from that place, something invisible shifts. This isn't magic. This isn't a trick. This is the law of how humans are wired. We pay attention to what we can't easily get. We respect what feels rare, and we hold on to what changes us when we encounter it. That is the key. To become someone they can't ignore or replace, you must become rare. And rare does not mean rich or beautiful. Rare means self-aware. It means aligned. It means you know who you are so clearly that the whole room can feel it before you say a word. When you step into a space carrying that energy, people respond without knowing why. They slow down, they listen, they remember. That's what happens when a person stops performing and starts embodying. So many people are chasing likes, validation, attention, applause. They have mistaken visibility for value, but visibility without presence is just noise. True presence is built from the ground up, and when you have it, you no longer need to chase. The world starts to lean toward you. And here's the beautiful part: anyone can do this. It doesn't matter how overlooked you've been up to now, how many mistakes you've made, or how old you are. None of that disqualifies you from becoming someone unforgettable. It just requires a radical kind of honesty and the courage to strip away what is false. If you can be brave enough to ask yourself, who am I beneath the noise, beneath the roles I've been given, beneath everything I thought I had to be? then you can start building a life that commands attention. This isn't a performance. It isn't a strategy. It's a return to yourself. And when you do that, everything changes. Suddenly, your boundaries make sense. Suddenly, your presence becomes magnetic. Suddenly, the energy in the room tilts when you enter because people can feel when someone has come home to themselves. This is what you have been missing. Not a new trick, not a new system. Just the decision to stop being an echo and start being a voice. You don't need to shout to be heard when your presence speaks louder than noise ever could. That is the insight most people never hear, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you choose to stop living for approval and start living in alignment, everything around you begins to shift. And that is the door we are going to walk through now. Why does this work? Why is it that the moment someone stops begging to be seen, they start being noticed? It comes down to how the human mind is wired. We are drawn to what we cannot easily have. We lean in when there is depth that cannot be consumed at a glance. Scarcity makes us curious. Mystery makes us alert. And alignment makes us trust without even knowing why. When you begin to live from your center instead of your fear, people feel the difference in ways they can't explain. Think about the last time you met someone who seemed completely at home in their own skin. They didn't rush to fill the silence. They didn't try to win your approval. They weren't trying to be impressive. And yet you remembered them not because of what they did, but because of how they made you feel. That feeling is what people are starving for. In a world full of noise, constant exposure, and endless options, the rarest thing is someone who has presence. It's like walking into a loud restaurant and finding a table in the corner where there's stillness, a place where the conversation feels different. When you live out of alignment, you are that table. People start coming to you not for distraction, but for something real. Psychology even backs this up. There's a principle called the scarcity effect. Studies show that when a resource appears to be limited, people automatically assign it more value. In one experiment at Stanford, the same bottle of wine was rated higher when participants were told it was rare. The wine didn't change. The perception did. Human attention works the same way. When your energy is always on demand, when you are constantly available, the perception of your value drops. It's not because people are cruel. It's because the mind associates ease of access with commonness. The opposite is also true. When you pull back, when you choose your presence carefully, when you create space instead of trying to fill every gap, your presence begins to matter. But this isn't just about distance. It's about gravity. Gravity comes from depth. Depth comes from knowing who you are. And that is why someone who has cultivated their inner world cannot be ignored. It is not a show. It is not a trick. It is energy. It's the calmness in their voice, the way they hold eye contact without needing to dominate, the way they speak slowly because they are not desperate to be heard. These things happen naturally when a person has met themselves deeply. And it goes beyond psychology, it's biology. The human nervous system responds to steadiness. When you are centered, people feel safer around you, safe enough to slow down, safe enough to listen, safe enough to trust. And here's another reason why this works. Most people spend their entire lives trying to be everything for everyone. That makes them generic. And generic is forgettable, but specificity that's magnetic. When you understand your own archetype, when you stop copying everyone else and start expressing your own, you move from being one of many to being a category of one. You become irreplaceable because no one else can replicate what is authentically yours. Look at every person you consider unforgettable. It isn't their money or looks that set them apart. It's their essence. Steve Jobs, Maya Angelou, David Bowie, Oprah, none of these people tried to be everything. They became fully themselves, and the world had no choice but to pay attention. It is the same for you. The moment you stop hiding behind performance and step into your truth, the people who need to find you will, and those who don't will fall away. That's the paradox. When you stop trying to be chosen, you become the kind of person who is chosen naturally. And this is why the work we are talking about isn't a quick tip or a viral hack. It's deep, slow, intentional work. But the results over time are undeniable. When you shift your energy from chasing to choosing, from noise to clarity, from generic to specific, you stop living in competition with the crowd. You no longer need to shout for attention because you have something far more powerful: resonance. Resonance is the thing that makes people lean closer without even knowing why. It's the invisible pull of someone who has built a world inside themselves so rich that just being in their presence feels like a privilege. That is why this works. That is why, when you do this, they can no longer ignore you and they can never replace you. So how do you actually do it? How do you take this idea of becoming someone they can't ignore or replace and make it more than just a nice thought? It has to move from concept into action. And the only way that happens is if you break it down into steps simple enough that you can do them every single day until they become the new way you live. The first step is to identify who you really are beneath all the layers of who you have been told to be. This is not a quick exercise. It means setting aside time where there is no phone, no noise, no expectation, just you and the question: what is left when I am no longer performing? What moments in my life made me feel alive? What kind of energy flows through me when I'm not trying to impress anyone? Write it down. Put it in front of your eyes. This is how you start to meet the version of yourself that has been buried. The second step is to strip away everything in your life that doesn't fit that version of you. It will be uncomfortable. It will feel like loss. The people who only know you as the version that serves them will protest. They will tell you that you've changed. Let them. This pruning is how you make space for your own presence to grow. Every time you say no to what doesn't fit, you are saying yes to who you are becoming. The third step is to create boundaries and space around yourself. You cannot become rare if you are always on call. Start by slowing down your responses. Don't be the first to fill every silence. Don't be the person who answers everything within seconds out of fear of being forgotten. Train yourself to be comfortable with the discomfort of not always being reachable. This is not arrogance. This is respect, first for yourself, then for others. When you respect your own time and energy, the world will follow that lead. The fourth step is to build your inner wealth. That means reading, listening, observing, traveling inward and outward, feeding your mind with ideas, your heart with stillness, and your soul with experiences that expand you. Because what people respond to isn't the surface. It's the depth. When someone sits across from you and senses that you have lived, learned, and wrestled with life, that energy stays with them. You cannot fake it. You can only build it. And the fifth step is to align your outer life with what is happening inside you. Clean your space. Pay attention to the way you dress, not for the sake of brands or trends, but to choose what feels like you. The way you walk into a room, the way your words land, the way your environment feels. Let all of that become an extension of your truth. Because before people hear you, they see you. And what they see tells them whether you belong to yourself or whether you are still trying to borrow someone else's skin. These steps are not instant. They are not easy, but they are clear. And every single one of them is something you can start today. You can start by giving yourself 15 minutes of silence to ask those questions. You can start by saying no to one thing that drains you. You can start by letting a message sit unread while you breathe before reacting. You can start by opening a book instead of a feed, by putting one object on your desk that reminds you of the life you want to live, by taking a slow walk just to hear yourself think. And as small as those choices seem, they are the beginning of a shift so deep that, over time, the way the world treats you cannot help but change. Because you are no longer living like an option. You are building yourself into something that cannot be ignored, and step by step, you will feel it first long before they do. This is the path. It begins with you. It always has. And the moment you commit to these steps, you begin to take back the power you thought you had lost forever. Let me show you how this looks in real life. Because sometimes an idea only becomes real when you see it lived out by someone who started exactly where you are. There's a story about a man named Ray, a barber from Chicago who spent years being one of many. He was good at what he did. Sharp fades, clean lines, he knew every style. But so did 100 other barbers in his city. He charged less than he was worth because he thought that was how to get more clients. He stayed late, came in early, and never said no because he was afraid people would forget about him if he wasn't always available. And for years, it was exactly the same. People came in, got a haircut, paid, left, and forgot his name. He was just another option. One day, after a slow shift, he sat in his empty shop and realized he didn't want to be another pair of hands that could be swapped out at any moment. He started asking himself hard questions. Why do people come to me? What do they leave with other than a haircut? If the answer is nothing, how will they ever see me differently from anyone else? That night he made a decision. He stopped selling cuts. He started giving experiences. Instead of rushing through every client just to get to the next one, he slowed down. He listened. He let them talk, really talk. He became a vault for their fears, their frustrations, their secrets. And something strange happened. The men who sat in his chair started coming back, not because of the perfect fade, but because they felt lighter when they left. Word spread. They started telling their friends, "You have to sit in Ray's chair. It's different, you'll see." Months later, his shop was fully booked, months in advance. Prices went up. People waited because what they were coming for wasn't something you could find anywhere else. He didn't just cut hair, he created a space. And when you create a space like that, you stop being replaceable. This didn't happen because Ray learned a new technique with a clipper. It happened because he changed what he carried inside him. He went from hustling for every scrap of attention to becoming a presence people wanted to be around. This story is not about haircuts. It's about energy. It's about a man who finally decided that he was done living like an option. He stopped racing. He started choosing. And in that choice, the world began to choose him. You might not be a barber. You might be in an office, or a classroom, or a studio apartment trying to figure out what's next. It doesn't matter where you are. The principle is the same. The second you stop giving yourself away so cheaply and start offering something real, everything shifts. And what Ray's story proves is that you don't need a platform or a big break to become someone unforgettable. You just need to stop being a shadow in your own story. From that day forward, Ray was no longer just a barber. He was the man people went to when they needed to feel seen. His work spoke without him having to raise his voice. That's what happens when you build presence. That's what happens when you do the inner work. You stop trying to prove and you start to embody. And that is when people can't ignore you and they know they cannot replace you. That's when everything begins to change. Most people hear a story like that and they get excited. But the moment they try to apply it in their own life, they fall into the same traps that have been keeping them invisible for years. The first trap is thinking you can fake it. You can't put on a mask of confidence or copy someone else's way of speaking or dressing and expect the world to believe it. People sense when it's a performance. What you build on the outside has to come from the inside, or it crumbles the second you get tired. The second trap is believing that being rare means being cold, arrogant, or playing games. Pulling back out of fear is not the same as creating space out of strength. Some try to look mysterious by shutting everyone out, by withholding love, by pretending they don't care. That's not presence, that's fear wearing armor. True presence doesn't punish people, it draws them in because it feels steady, not manipulative. Another trap is impatience. You will make one change, say no to one thing, take one evening for yourself. And when the world doesn't instantly treat you differently, you'll tell yourself it's not working. And so you'll rush back into overgiving, hoping that if you just do more, you'll finally be enough. But this isn't a switch you flip. It's a slow rewiring of who you are and how you choose to show up. You have to stay with it long enough for people to feel that the change is real. You also have to be careful of another subtle trap, using these ideas as a new form of performance. The moment you start doing all these steps just to make someone notice you, you're back at square one. This work is not about manipulating anyone into valuing you. It's about valuing yourself so deeply that you no longer need to be manipulated by their approval. And finally, there's the trap of thinking that once you find your center, everyone will applaud you. The truth is, the moment you start living from your truth, some people will leave. They won't like the new you because the old you made their life easier. You were convenient. And when you stop being convenient, their reaction will be to pull back. Let them. Not everyone is meant to stay. And if you mistake that resistance as a sign that you're doing something wrong, you'll go right back to being a version of yourself that doesn't cost anyone anything. If you want to become someone they can't ignore or replace, you have to be willing to hold steady through that storm. It takes time to teach the world how to treat you. Every single person who has ever become magnetic had a season where they were misunderstood. You will too. The question is whether you can keep walking anyway. The way around these traps is simple but not easy. Always come back to your reason. You are not doing this to be liked. You are doing this so that you stop disappearing in your own life. You are doing this so that when you look back 10 years from now, you know you didn't live as an echo. And if you can hold that reason close, these traps lose their power. You will stop looking over your shoulder for applause and start moving forward for yourself. That's how you make sure that this shift lasts. Because the minute you turn it into another performance, it dies. This is not performance. This is the truth of who you are. This is the moment where you stop listening and start choosing. You have been waiting long enough. The years will not slow down for you to figure out who you are. If you have felt invisible, replaceable, easy to dismiss, then today has to be the day you decide that story ends. Because here is the truth. No one else is going to do this for you. No one is going to tap you on the shoulder and give you permission to take up space. That permission has always been yours. And the longer you wait, the more your life becomes something you are watching instead of living. So here is what I want you to do. Today, not tomorrow, not next week. Take 1 hour for yourself and be alone without any noise. No phone, no scrolling, no distractions. Sit there with a notebook and ask yourself 3 questions. When do I feel most alive? What have I been doing out of fear instead of choice? And what is one small thing I can stop doing right now that makes me feel smaller? Write the answers down. You do not need to fix your entire life in a day. You just need to begin. The moment you take that 1 hour, you have already started. Because starting tells your mind a different story. It tells you, I am no longer waiting. And once you begin, even in a small way, something deep inside starts to wake up. You are telling the world, but more importantly yourself, that you are done living as background. There is no perfect time to start. There is no guarantee that it will be easy. But there is a guarantee that if you keep waiting, nothing will ever change. A year from now, you will either look back and see the first hour you gave yourself that changed everything, or you will look back and see another year of being overlooked. Which one are you going to choose? Because life is too short to keep hoping that they will notice you while you are busy erasing yourself. It's time to stop waiting. It's time to stop performing. It's time to begin, not tomorrow, today. Before the day is over, I want you to claim one thing that belongs to you, your presence. Because the moment you start living like someone who matters, the world starts to notice. It always has. It always will. This is the moment where you draw a line and say, no more. I will not live as an option. I will live as someone they cannot ignore, someone they cannot replace. And that begins now. Imagine a room full of noise, everyone shouting over each other. And then imagine someone stepping in and saying nothing, just standing there steady, and the whole room slowly turns to look. That stillness, that gravity is what you are building. You are not building a louder voice, you are building a deeper presence. And here is the question I want to leave you with tonight. If you stopped trying to be everything for everyone, what rare thing in you would finally have the space to shine? Sit with that. Because somewhere under the habits of people-pleasing, under the fear of being forgotten, there is a version of you that is not trying to prove anything. That version of you has been waiting. And the moment you let yourself come back to that person, life begins to feel different. The colors look different. People around you feel different. They listen differently. They remember you differently. You become that steady person who does not need to rush or explain or convince because you know who you are. That is the essence of being someone they can't ignore or replace. Not because you are louder, but because you are rare. And the world has always made room for what is rare. So take a breath. Think of that one thing about you that has been buried under years of trying to fit in, and promise yourself that starting today you will give it space to grow. Don't wait for the perfect plan. Don't wait for someone else to validate you. Just begin. Begin with a small act of presence, a small act of choosing yourself, and keep repeating it until it becomes who you are. Because once you live that way, once you stop chasing and start choosing, you'll find something you've been searching for all along. You won't need anyone to see you. They won't be able not to.